parak of Gittin, which is on page Mem Tes on base 98. Oh, that would be a mistake. Hamagarish is Ishto. Somebody divorces a wife. Varmalay said, I read Mutar Tzcholodam. You're permissible to. You got it now? Come on. Hamagarish is Ishto. So he divorces his wife. Varmalay Lon, he says to Arei Mutar Tzcholodam, you're permissible to all individuals, Elish Pliny, except for one. Rabbi Lezer Matir says this is a valid form of divorce. Say, what do? You let him in. You take to get back from her. You give it to her again. You have to say to her the second time, permissible to anybody. In other words, that form of get, to give a get which is valid for the entire world except for one person, is null and void. Rabbi Lezer says it's good though, and the more it's going to ask why. Say okay. So it says more in kasa b'socho. If you originally wrote in the get that condition that you're mutter to the entire world except for one person, despite the fact that you went back and erased it, possible the get remains invalid. Rabbi Eli said, time of Rabbi Lezer. What is Rabbi Lezer's reason that he says he's going to magarish a woman partially and still have her forbidden to one individual or more? Says she leaves your house and she goes and she's allowed to go and marry somebody else. Now it doesn't say everybody else, but rather even if she only is permissible now to one man who she wasn't permissible to previously, that is considered to be a sufficient form of a get. Now the Gemara comments, the obvious comment, Shmu also Rubali Masnisa. What the Gemara said is greater, more of a chiddush than the Mishnah. Masnisa Amara, because the Mishnah is talking about a case, she was made permissible for all people, Vasal the Mechel just also for one individual. Shmu also Amra, the Gemara is talking about a case, which she was also upon everybody, the only word permitted her for one individual. So the Gemara is saying, even if she's only permitted to one individual in the entire world, that suffices already to be considered a get. You don't have to like it, but that's what Rabbi Lezer says, okay? Okay? No, we don't accept it. But it's Rabbi Lezer's opinion. My time with Rabbi Lezer, what's the logic of Rabbi Lezer? Here's the logic, which is not bad. Now, there are several ways of learning this logic. I'm going to give you my way, and then I'll give you a different way. Mamisa Materes, just like, I skipped. Mater Lezer, Misa Materes will get Mater. Logic of Lezer, like with Misa, death terminates a marriage, and get terminates a marriage. Mamisa Materes Mechza, it should be really Lemechza. Death can be a partial heter. For example, if she has Yavam, so she's not permitted to marry anybody other than the Yavam, right? So it's a partial heter by death. So get also, according to Rabbi Lezer, can also be get matir lemechza. A get can permit halfway. It doesn't have to permit necessarily all the way. The Shari Teretz wants to change the girsa here, which I was thought about actually before I saw him, before he saw it inside. He wants to change it to my time at the Rabbana. He wants to give logic to rabbis who say a get has to be total. And he wants to say, learn it like this. My time at the Rabbanon, Misa Materes to get Matir, I went back. Mamisa Materes Umechatze. Mechatze means it severs relationships. It goes, rends asunder. The marriage of get, so to the get of matiru mechatze, that's completely rend asunder the marriage, and she has to remit it to everybody. Okay, and similarly, the next reason, which is given for Rabbanon, will also, according to Shara Teretz and Torah, reverse the gears in a minute. But first, let's read the ways in front of us. My time of the Rabbanon, what's the logic of the rabbis? The Yotzei Beisov Ochel Vaisel Yishachar. She leaves his house and she goes to somebody else's house, right? Maki hiki shavaya liyitzia. There's a parallel drawn between the divorce and marriage. Just like by marriage. She has no marriage. Once she's married, she has no possibility of marrying anybody else, right? The marriage bans her on the entire world. After Yitziyah, so Yitziyah is so that when she leaves the marriage, there's no such thing as a divorce, an exit, where she's not permitted to one person, right? That's not considered to be a valid divorce. Just like marriage asks her on everybody, so to get has to permit her to everybody. The language is not so glad, but we need a little bit of sledgehammer to into the language. But that's the svara. Now again, the Shari Torah still changes the gear, and it says, my time of Rabbi Eliezer. What's the logic, Rabbi Eliezer? That there's a power drawn between marriage and divorce. Ma'ava Yosef, just like when she gets married, Ein Lavaya, he reads it, Elo Eitzel Echad. She only gets married to one person, right? Afi Yitziyasa, so to when she gets divorced, Ein Yitziyah Elo Eitzel Echad. She only even getting divorced just to permit her for one person would be enough. It's like marriage to one person, so the divorce is already divorced if it's to one person. That's how he learns, if you learn his logic, Rabbi Eliezer. Okay, now after Rabbi Eliezer died, Rabbi Eliezer ben Hurkanus, Rabbi Eliezer, Nichlas Arbas came in, 4 elders came in, Lashel Dvarav, to repudiate his words. Lashel Dvarav Rabbi Eliezer. And these 4 came in Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah, Rabbi Yosef Glili, and Rabbi Tarfon, and Rabbi Akiva. Sorry, those 4. So it says the Gemara, Rabbi Yeshua complained when they got together. They're having this convention, the knock Rabbi Eliezer convention. So Rabbi Yeshua says it's not nice. You can't repudiate a lion after his death. In other words, were you alive, you might be able to answer any of your questions. You're big cowards to sit here now and try to repudiate Rabbi Eliezer, right? So it says more. Nevertheless, Rabbi Tarfon started. Rabbi Tarfon rejected Rabbi Eliezer with the following logic. If you said to a woman, you're permitted to all men, except for so-and-so. If she goes and marries so-and-so's brother. Okay? So-and-so's brother. And so-and-so's brother dies without any kids. So what does she have to undergo? Yibum, but so-and-so is the person who was excluded from her divorce. Because if he's so-and-so, she's still an Eishasish, right? And that would be a case where Yibum would not be feasible. But if that's the case, she cannot, obviously, right? So learning it's this guy by excluding somebody from the divorce, not making a condition against that which the Torah says. The Torah says whenever that any marriage should be susceptible to evil, right? And you are creating the possibility of marriage which is not susceptible to evil by creating an individual who's also upon this woman. One individual who can never be a Yava. So that would be Master Mashkosa B'Torah. Says more boo, boo, boo. I skipped first. Chomasa Mashkosa B'Torah to know about them. Anybody makes against that which the Torah says, it's null and void. So it says more again, that's no good. It says the Gemara Me'at, if that was the case, Lo Yisos Ba'asachi. Should never be allowed to marry your niece. Why? Because if you die, then your wife is going to have to be misiyabim to whom? To her own father, right? To your brother or his own father. And that, of course, doesn't work. We never saw the Torah discourage marrying your niece. On the contrary, there are many chazal that encourage marrying your niece, right? So it says Rabbi Yisrael Boon. Rabbi Yisrael Boon said, Svora Tama. I can give a svara for the reason, for a distinction here. Tama Torah there, the Torah said you can marry your niece, and at the same time the Torah itself forbade yibum with the father. However, but here, who asaralav? Here he creates a scenario which goes against the Torah. That we do not permit. Okay, that's very Tarfon's logic. That we do not permit him to create a scenario which goes against Torah's grain by creating a scenario which artificially no yibum can be allowed. If it's natural, meaning that it's a result of family relationships, that's one thing. But we would not allow you to create a situation which yibum cannot occur. Okay? Says more further, hey, Rabbi Chanina b'shem Rabbi Pinchas, Rabbi Pinchas asked, if this is a case which even would be for, in fact, if you were able to create this artificial case, which even would be forbidden because there's one person in the world to whom she remains an Eishes Ish. So that's the case. Nisei Sheishes Noshim Cry Belez. At the beginning of Yevamos it says there are 15 women who cannot be, who pochos tzoroseim, who exempt their tzoros from Yibum because they are rayas. According to Rabbi Eliezer, you can artificially create a 16th one. Why is the 16th one not mentioned in the beginning of Yevamos, right? You create a 16th one by saying the get is a get for everybody except for this one individual. So it says, it's not such a kasha. Ramana said, we already mentioned a reason just a few moments ago which will fit for this, your question as well. There, the Gemara and the Yevamos is discussing the ones the Torah creates upon an individual. But here, who asur love? He's the one who creates it himself. Okay? Now, there's that, according to Gillian Ephraim, there's a line missing here. And the line missing here is a line from the Tosafta, which should say, Umod Rabbi Lezer. We're going to discuss an interesting sheet of Rabbi Lezer, which is not brought down here in the Mishnah, but the Tosafta brings it down. Umod Rabbi Lezer concedes, you don't have this inside. Shim nis'amlo nizgarsho shemuteres linose lezesh nesrolov. If the first guy said, I'm divorcing you for everybody except for Yankel. By the visit of Yankel, you're still my wife. Then, Yankel, of course, cannot marry her. One of the other 10 million Jews in the world marries her, right? Then that second husband dies or divorces her. After the second marriage is terminated, Rabbi Lezer says she can go and marry Yankel. Okay, Yankel is only forbidden for her immediately upon the termination of the first marriage. But upon the termination of a second marriage, she would not be forbidden to Yankel. Even Rabbi Lezer concedes that. Okay? Why? I might say it's an eternal condition.
With respect to him, she's how is it that she's allowed to marry
well, she's physically Yankel, not between anybody else.
There's words entirely disastrous to say that it's not.
Yeah, I don't think it's so bad. I think it is. The Gemara is actually going to have difficulty with this. So says the Gemara, Rabbi Yirmiyah boy. Now pick up the Gemara again. Rabbi Yirmiyah asks a question. He asked the question actually in logic. If he said to an individual, if individual said to his wife, "You're mutter to all people in the world except for Yankel," and then she went to marry Beryl. And then Beryl died. How does Beryl's death then permit her to go marry Yankel? Her first husband asked Yankel. Why has Yankel now become mutter? Just because Beryl, the second husband, died. So says the Gemara, Milse Amara. Nevertheless, the factor of Eliezer said that this case is okay. Now, after Beryl, the second husband died, she should go marry Yankel, the third husband. This teaches us he saw so that the death of the second husband, Big Erusha, it should be Big Erusha, together with the divorce of the first husband, and drop the vav in the next word, matirin. They permit together bezeh after the termination of the second marriage, majos harishon, that which the first marriage forbade. So if the first marriage, second marriage become conglomerate entities, and at the end of the second marriage, however, she's permitted to marry anybody who the first husband forbade her to marry at the termination of her first marriage. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Yirmiyah said, Lo amar ela shemisaso gerushav. This is, let's make this clear. It's only upon the second husband's death that the first husband's divorce, no clause in the divorce that vis-a-vis Yankel doesn't work, falls off. Hanisuin lo. But what happened if if she just married a second husband without actually having yet gotten divorced or without having gotten yet divorced or widowed? So, and then her second husband dies. And it happens to be that the second husband's brother is that Yankel whom she was offered. So Rabbi Yirmiyah wants to say she can't go now and be misabemis to Yankel. When does the second husband's death terminate the first husband's prohibition upon her from marrying Yankel? When the second husband dies and he didn't have any relationship to Yankel. But if the second husband was Yankel's brother and he died and didn't leave any kids, then Yankel would remain author, because then the Yankel's relationship is not, I'm not sure exactly why, but Yankel's relationship is not advanced by nature by dint of there being a second marriage, unless the second marriage is one which is not at all concerned with his status. But if it's concerned by his status by virtue of the fact that he's the Yavam in this situation, so then he would continue to be prohibited to this woman. You know, I think I understand why. Now I understand as I'm talking about. Because he holds, and I think there was someone we showed him, one that Perushim is out here. He holds that what determines your status as a Yavam, not the death of your brother, but the marriage of your brother. At the time your brother got married, you were Asr because Yankel was the one left out by the clause who remains Asr forever and ever. Okay? So even once his brother dies, again, the first husband said you're mutter to the entire world except for Yankel. Then she got divorced on that basis. Then she went to marry Yankel's brother, right? When the brother dies, she can't go and be misabemis to Yankel, because Yankel, in order to be a legitimate Yovam, had to be suitable to be Yovam at the time of the marriage of his brother to this woman. But he only became suitable, in fact, as Rabbi Yirmiyah says, when his brother died. By that time, it's too late to establish his status as a valid Yovam. Okay? Because again, Rabbi Yirmiyah, the Gerushav, that with the death and divorce linked together, that makes Yankel permitted this woman. On Isuin Lo, but not at time marriage, and if you hold that Yavam falls into Sasa Yibum at the time marriage, so that won't work to permit him to be Miyabin. Amar Yisrael, top of Nun Amrav. Amar Yisrael said, it should be Heichon, Motzina B'Torah. Where do we find the Torah? Where do we find a Torah that somebody who's permitted to one person is also another person, that which is also to one person is mutter to another person? So, rather, it can't be this way. Rather, also, he's attacking Rabbi Lezer. Basically, is one of the people who attack Rabbi Lezer. He says, rather, mutter also call Adam, if she's permitted also to one person, she's also to everybody. Mutal she's permitted to one person, mutal call Adam, she's permitted to everybody as well. That's Rabbi Yosef Kli's reputation, Rabbi Lozer. Now, Shai Teres Yitzhak brings down Tosefta, Rabbi Lozer ben Azariah's reputation, Rabbi Lozer, which is not in our Gemara. Rabbi Lozer ben Azariah's reputation is, it says in Teire, Krisus. Get is called the Sefer Krisus. Krisus means severance. There's no severance if she's still permitted if she's still forbidden by basis of the husband's injunction. She's still forbidden on Yankel. That's not true Krisus, and therefore the get is now a valid get. Okay? Says the Gemara, Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva responded like this. Harei Shoyozen. That's a little bit of a difficult Gemara Girsa. Why? There's something messed up here in the Girsa, and everybody tries and changes it, but I don't think they make it any better. Hey, Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva responded like this against Rabbi Lezer. Harei Shoyozen sheneser love Kohen. Let's say the husband, before his divorce, said, you're permitted the entire world except for Reuven Cohen. Can't go marry Reuven Cohen. Reuven Cohen's off limits for you, right? Umei Samagarish, and then the person who divorced died. Lonim Tseis Almonolo, Ugrusha Koel Kwanim. So now it's going to come out a ludicrous thing. What's she going to be? Vis-a-vis every other Cohen, she's going to be a divorcee, because she was divorced. But vis-a-vis Reuven Cohen, what's she going to be? Once the first husband dies. Vis-a-vis Reuven Cohen, what's she going to be? A what? A widow. Again, the first one said, you're mutter to anybody except for Reuven Cohen, right? So vis-a-vis everybody else in the world, where the divorce is valid and she's a divorcee. Vis-a-vis every Cohen in the world, she's going to be awesome. Vis-a-vis Reuven Cohen, since he retained his status as husband, vis-a-vis Reuven Cohen, vis-a-vis Reuven Cohen, she's going to be a widow, because the husband died, the first husband, and she should be mutter to marry Reuven Cohen, which is, I think the fancy English word for that is a tautology, if I'm not mistaken. It's a logical inconsistency. It can't work out, right? So it says the Gemara. Now, if the Gemara just stopped there, it'd be fine because we'd understand it. But now the Gemara chooses to explain its question, Rabbi Akiva's question, and this is where it gets a little bit confusing. Okay, so we understand Rabbi Akiva's question. Now the Gemara is going to explain it and confuse us. Okay, that's our job. Rabbi's job is to confuse people. Remember that. Where's the Torah more severe? Begrusha Amona, by a divorcee or a widow. Right? Obviously, the Torah, so divorcee is more severe than Amona. Amona is only also to what kind of Kohen? Kohen Gadol. Grusha is also to every Kohen, right? So, umay grusha chamura, if a grusha, which is more severe, lakol, she's also to everyone, right? Because obviously grusha is also to kohanim. Lo nesra mimashu uterba mitzagerushin sheba. She does it because, and she nevertheless she doesn't become usher to this one kohen. To whom she remained mutter because she was never divorced, because there's gerushin, right? Amona kala, but wait a minute, Amona, which is more lenient, when she becomes a Amona, eno din shete oser, it does not make her oser. It doesn't make her oser, and this is all part of the question, and it's all explaining the conundrum. Eino din shete oser, she cannot become oser because she even though she remained in Eshes, but still right now she's an almana, therefore she's mutter. This is all an explanation of the question. Okay, there's something choppy and confusing, but that's basically the explanation. Gerushin doesn't affect Reuven Cohen. Even later when she comes to Amon, it doesn't affect Reuven Cohen. That's the premise. That's more not necessarily true. You know, it says more, Afilu etzlo nogaboke Rushin. Even vis-a-vis Reuven Cohen, she's still a Megureshes. Not that she's a Megureshes vis-a-vis him. You're right, she's not a divorcee vis-a-vis Reuven Cohen. but she has the status of Megureshes, and therefore she can't even marry Reuven Cohen, despite the fact that towards him she was formerly only an Amona, not a Grusha. She still can't marry him. Okay, says the Gemara. Another approach. Now, there's another approach which Rabbi Akiva used to refute Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. What's his refute? Or what's his refute? Not Rabbi Elazar, sorry. Rabbi Elazar ben Rokrus. What's the refutation? Okay, fine. He said, remitted to all individuals, chutz v'ploni, except for Yankel. Now she goes and marries Beryl. And she has kids with Beryl. And then Mace. Beryl dies. And then she goes and marries Yankel. There aren't the kids from Beryl. You know, it says Achron means here, not the last one, which is Yankel, but the middle one, which is Beryl. Aren't the kids from Beryl Mamzerim? And that's a conundrum. Because when she lived with Beryl, she was mutter to Beryl. Yet later on, she goes and marries Yankel against the will of her first husband. Since that was a clause in her Gerushin is null and void. So you're going to make kids Mamzerim after they're born. How can you have such a reality? Either Mamzerim when they're born or they're not Mamzerim. How can you make Mamzerim after birth? Right? So says the Gemara, Milsa Amara, this teaches us. Now, Rabbi, this question Rabbi Akiva teaches us that he obviously disagrees with what Rabbi Yirmiyah said before. Rabbi Yirmiyah said before, on the bottom of Mem Tesam Beis, that when she marries a second husband, and the second husband either dies or divorces, so then the first husband's clause, chutz miyanko, falls off. But clearly Rabbi Akiva's refutation of Elazar ben Rokrus doesn't take that into account. Because he says the refutation of chutz miyanko still applies, right? And that's why if she marries Yankel after Beryl, her kids can become, theoretically she'll become Mamzerim. So it says, anyway, this teaches us, she'ein, it should be not just Gerushin, but she'ein misa v'gerushin. The death or divorce of the second guy doesn't permit that which the first guy forbade. Period. Rabbi Simi. Rabbi Simi said, Rabbi Simi is going a slightly different angle. He's not asking Rabbi Elazar anymore, but he's asking Rabbi Yirmiyah. Rabbi Yirmiyah said, again, the termination of the second marriage severs the clause which the first husband imposed, chutz mi Yankel, right, to accept Yankel. Rabbi Yirmiyah asked him that. Rabbi Yirmiyah said, Matzinu Isha, we found a woman, Bitchila initially, well, actually, it's a question. Excuse me, let me intone this properly. Rabbi Yirmiyah said, Matzinu Isha, that we find a woman, Bitchila initially, take out the word ein, try third, so takes it out. Bitchila chayovin alei mishum erva. Initially, there's an elva, because she was also Tiyanko, because the clause of first husband, ubasoif, and at the end, put in the word ein from the previous line. Why? How come she was an erva Tiyanko after the first marriage terminated? Later on, she doesn't become an erva anymore. Where do you find our rights fall off? Says Gemara, that's not a question. Ramana said, well, I'll give you an analogy. What is this analogous to? It's like a guy who told his wife, this is actually a pretty cool case. A guy told his wife, I raise a gita, let's your get. I'm not tibali leash plenty. On the condition, he was a swinger, on the condition that after I divorce you, you go and have relations with my buddy Yankel. Okay? This is the opposite of our Mishnah. In our Mishnah was a T'nai chutz mi Yankel. Here it's a T'nai dafka, you have to go and have relations with Yankel. Okay? So B'tchila, now the way the Shai Teretz Yitzhak changes the Kishan said, B'tchila he asura lakol. Initially she's also to everybody, right? And then, instead of also livo, but as she says, asura lakol, and then when he has beer with her, she becomes permitted. But the Or Sameach retains the girsa here. It's interesting. B'tchila hu asur livo. It means when Yankel starts having relations with her, he's having relations with an Eishes Ish. Because right now, the T'nai has not yet been fulfilled. When he begins the bia, she's still an erva. At the end of the bia, over bal, once he transgresses and completes the bia, then at that point, hutar get the mafreya becomes a get retroactively. So we see here a woman who started out being an erva, right? Again, he divorced his wife and said, Almanasi had bia with Yankel, right? So when Yankel starts the bia, she's still an erva. By the time Yankel completes the bia, she's no longer an erva because that was the condition was fulfilled. So here we have the same thing. When the first husband says chutz mi Yankel, it's an erva. When then she goes and marries Beryl and then gets divorced or dies from a Beryl dies, so then that erva falls off. It's a very cool analogy. Rabbi Yochanan said, halacha, Shimon and Elazar. Now this is out of left field. Elazar, Shimon and Elazar. What does Shimon and Elazar say? Shimon and Elazar says the previous paragraph. He says that you must tell a woman this is your get. You can't say this is a document, a bill of sale, a loan, tricker. You got to tell us again. Okay. The Shimon and Elazar a get that Shimon and Elazar Matana. It's not again until you tell the time you give it to her, raise it, it's your get. Rabbi Yaakov said, Af reach psul ein ba. That's not clear Rabbi Yaakov Bracha name Rabbi Yana is going on. So machlokes between the Meforshim here. Some say it's going on a case where you told a woman, this is your bill of loan. And again he gave it to her, and lo and behold it was a get. So Rabbi Yana said it's not even a reach get. And the reach get is a get which doesn't actually divorce her, but makes it possible to marry a Kohen subsequently. So it's not even a reach get. That's why I learned Rabbi Yaakov Bracha. The others learned Rabbi Yaakov Bracha is going back on our Mishnah, and that he's saying that we pass like Rabbanan, that you have to sever all ties. You can't say chutz mi Yankel. And he's saying if you said like Rabbi Elazar holds chutz mi Yankel, then we hold that that's not even a reach get. It's not even a partially valid get to Asr the Kuna. It's not even that. Okay? And the next one also, till the Mishnah will be explained differently depending on which pshat of the two pshatim I just gave you hold. But I'm going to change the gears to the next one like the Shai Eretz Yisrael does. But I explain with both ways according to the change. Rav Kahana said, Zosa Maris, this teaches us, take out the word lo, choshu. Our Mishnah tells us that our Mishnah tells us that they made, that there is a problem of reach haget, right? Even if you said chutz mi ploini, right? And how so? Because Zizmer's choshu, because in Tamar, if you're going to say lo choshu, again throwing in that they were not, they didn't suspect reach yet. So adshu biyada, while still in his hands, yomer la rei muter s'choda. Let him say to her, it says domar, but it should say yomer. Let it say rei muter s'choda. In other words, in our Mishnah it says, take the get back and do it over again, right? It says take the get back. If you said chutzi ploni, go and take the get back and over again, right? So that must mean that there is a concept of reach get. Because if there was no concept of reach get, let it just say there ain't no get. Why does it take it back, give it over again, say it's not a valid get? It must be. It is a little bit of a get, and then we say, don't assume it's not a get at all. Just do it over again. Right? Again, there are no reach get, and we'll just say, ain't no get. So it says, take it back and do it over again. It must be that to a certain extent it's a get. To what extent? To the extent that it's a reach get to possible. Rabbi Yaakov said the exact opposite. Zosa Meres, our Mishnah teaches us, Shalo Choshu. That they were not concerned with the reach get. Because in Tamar, you're going to say Choshu, that if they were concerned with the reach get, then Kol Masha B'Yoda L'Garish L'Garish. Very interesting, Lom de Shesvara. If you're going to say create a reach get, then this get is used up. You can't use it a second time. A get which had a ramification that it made reach get cannot be used again as a valid get. amazing svara. I mean, it only works according to Sharater, so Kirsa, but I like it. Again, in Tamar, if you're going to say Choshu, then Koma should be Yoda Lagarish Yigarish. For the fact that you can take it back and give it again, it must be that the first time around there wasn't even Reach again. And that's why the get can be used again, just with the proper framework. In other words, not without saying Chutz Miyanko. Now, this whole thing which I just read you of Rav Kahan and Rabbi Yacha can also be read if you're assuming that this is going back around Shim ben Elazar and not our Mishnah. I read like this: Kahan Omer Zosa Meres Choshu. I'll prove to you that we are of that Amira, that we are considered again, even if you didn't say the right thing, because he Tamer Choshu and Torah Lochash, you're going to say they're not afraid of wrong, that they don't make a get where there's a wrong Amira. So then, Achu Biyoda, that as long as it's in their hands, Yom L'Rei Teres Chodam. You should just say to her, Harei Teres Chodam. In other words, no, actually, I'm not sure if it's going to work out this way. 1 second. No, it works out. Works like that. This. Since our Mishnah required them to give the get over again, and it didn't say ain't no get, so it must be that there is reach get, even if you said the wrong thing. Because in essence, our Mishnah, where it says that you said to her, it's like saying kinsi shtar chov zeh, the wrong amira. And nevertheless, it says in our Mishnah, you have to give it over again. Just give it the right amira the second time. It doesn't say ain't no get. From this we see that, in fact, our Mishnah seems not to hold like a Shemin Elazar, seems to hold that there is Reach HaGet. And that's why, even though you gave it the wrong Amira, you have to give it again. We don't just say ain't no get altogether. And vice versa, Rav Acha says, Osmeres Shelo Choshu. On the contrary, our Mishnah indicates that it's not, there is no problem Reach HaGet, because in Temer Choshu, if there would be a problem if there is a Chashash of Reach HaGet, everything which he could have done with this get has been done. In other words, if it does create Reach HaGet, even if you use the wrong Amir, then it already created Reach HaGet. So therefore, by virtue of the fact that it says you can use it over again, it must be there's no Reach HaGet, even if you have the wrong Amir. So now that I've confused you all together,
Get is one that only has the effect of Reach HaGet.
Right, that's a Shai Teretz Yisrael's Chiddush. I don't know if he's right about that. I'm assuming that he's correct. You're right. Yeah. But in truth is, even if it's not really his Chiddush, so it's really what the Gemara is saying. Kol ma shiur l'garish yigarish. No matter how you read, though, the previous lines, that's what that line is saying. That's Yerushalmi's Gittin. A get gets used up. Right? It's like, has limited battery power. That's exactly what it's saying. Right? Yeah. It is a Gittin. That's what Yerushalmi is saying. I'm Rabbi Zira. Rabbi Zira said, Tani Shila Barbina. Shila Barbina said, Kol she'ilu, it should be, kosfo. Amanas posel. Anytime, if you write a condition into a get, it rents the posel. Even if you didn't write it in, but verbally made that declaration, even if you gave it on that basis, that suffices to make the get possible. It doesn't matter if it's written or stated, no matter what, it passes the get. Okay, says the Mishnah further. However, in contradiction to the previous Mishnah, if you're mutter to everybody except for people you're also to anyway. Your father, my father, lachai lachich, my brother, your brother, levet to a slave, la'akum to a goy, Chomishen lo kiddushin or love to anybody to whom she couldn't get married anyway. Kosher the get, it's kosher regardless. However, if he said to her, be permitted to everybody, Ella, except as an Almona l'kohen gadol, as a grusha chalutz l'kohen ediot, as a mamzeres in the Sina to Yisrael, as a baz Yisrael to Nasin Mamzer l'Nasin, to anybody to whom Kiddushin could be contracted, Afil Bavera, even though it requires an Avera to contract such a Kiddushin, if he made such a stipulation, possible, because that's like Chutz Miyanko. Despite the fact that that Kiddushin could only be effected through an Avera, it's still considered to be a limitation in the get, and limitation in the get, again, according to Rabbana, possible to get altogether. Kuvo Shaget, the what? Essence, thank you. The essence of the get is Arei Muter Sechol Adam. That language, we saw earlier in the Masechta, if you wrote that, just that alone, that will work Doraisa. You're minute to anybody. Rabbi Rabbi says we add the following, and we do write this into our Gittin. The Dain and this, the Heavy L'Chaminoi, should be you two from me. Sefer Duch in a book of a banishment, Biger Shvukim, and a letter of relinquishment, L'ma'ach, for you to go, Lis Nasva, to marry L'chol Gvar, any man, Deiti Tzvayon, that you desire. Kuvo shall get shiur. The essence of a release of a slave is Areat Bar Chorein, you are a free man, Areat you are to yourself. Rabbi Achamar, Krisus, it says Krisus in the Torah, right? That's what defines again. Well, lo pisa Torah Shem Krisus. The language of Krisus is only considered to be essential. Ella only it should be out on an Erev Sheish Bavaya. In other words, it has to be that he can marry anybody you want to marry, even if that marriage is forbidden. But it's only an Erev where no marriage can be contracted regardless. So the fact that you exclude it from a get, that's not a limitation in the power of the get. All right, I want to say,
Just basically saying that get only works where
right. There's no get. There's a place where Kiddush can't be typhus. That's right. You shouldn't. Now it says that lo yemar means you shouldn't write v'dain. When we write, this is also in fact in the Ksuva. In the Ksuva, there's a line where it says v'dain the heavy l'chamin dain the heavy. What has to go? V'dain nitunya dan holos leimi be'avua. And that dain we write daled nun, not daled yud nun, even though it's pronounced dain, which really should be spelled with a yud. So, but the reason I write Vidain without the yud is because otherwise it look like Vidin. And Vidin would have all sorts of negative ramifications, particularly by a get. By Ksuva, it's not so good for him. But by get, it would sound like Vidain. Vidin, Vidin, means if by law this is your get. Meaning, which would infer that if the law is not that I should divorce you, it's not a valid get. So it almost looked like a clause in the get. So that's instead of writing Vidain with a yud, we write Vidain without a yud. And the Gemara doesn't answer, but the pashtus is that it doesn't work because your own jurisdiction is not a language of release. It just means you're in charge of yourself. All right, Yossi Rabun says, in fact, first you have to write or say Hariat Bat Chorin, you're a free man, like it says on Mishnah, or Hariat Shelat, you belong to yourself. Our Mishnah said Le'atzmicha, to yourself. But that's not good enough, because that's too ambiguous. That's say Shelatzmicha, you belong to yourself. The Rambam, in fact, baskets like this Yerushalmi that you have to write Shelatzmicha. Masisa Yamarken, there's a brisa that says this Hareat Bat Chorin, or maybe this Yerushalmi's Gittin in our Mishnah. Hareat Ben Chorin, Hareat Shelatzmicha. So you have to write Shel, not Le'atzmicha, but Shelatzmicha. Okay, next Mishnah, Aloha Gimel. Shlosha Gittin B'sulim, the three Gittin with their apostle. Vim Nises, however, if she got married on the basis of Vlad is kosher. So the rabbis puzzled these Gittin, but Midoraisa, they're good there, but she got married on the basis, the rabbi said the kids are not mamzer. What are they? If you wrote the get in your own handwriting, the husband, there are no witnesses. Or Yesh Laveim, there are witnesses upon it, Vein Bosman, but it doesn't have a date in it. Or Yesh Bosman has a date, Vein Love Eid Echad, but only has one witness, not two. But it's written in the handwriting of the husband. Elu Shlosha Gittin Psulim, these 3 Gittin are apostle. However, Bimnisis, if she got married on their basis, Havlad kosher. The kid is kosher. Okay, now the beginning of the Gemara on Daf Navav has totally nothing to do with our Sugi and Gittin. It just got thrown in somehow from the Mishnah and Yevamis. From the Sugi and Yevamis. And then it's talking about what's considered to be a Safek Gerushin or a Safek Kiddushin. So there it's talking about a case where you threw Gerushin you threw the get to Safek Korav Lo, Safek Korav La, well, actually, that's the case that Shemar is going to bring up. But then it's talking about the kings, some case Kedushin Safek Gerushin, and the one says Leis Kan Safek Gerushin El Gerushin Mamish. That's not a Safek Gerushin, that's Mamish Gerushin. Whatever the case is there, it's not our case. But a case of Safek Kedushin. And then one of their continues, what is a Safek Kiddushin? Kayatzita, like we learned over there, Zorak lo Kiddushin, if you threw your Kiddushin to your wife, you threw her the ring, you really liked her. Safek Karav Lo, you don't have land closer to her or closer to him, Zo Safek Kiddushin. That's a Safek Kiddushin. V'achon, so too by get. Zorak lo Gidi, you toss her get, Safek Karav Lo, you don't know where it landed, so Safek Gerushin. All of that is not shaykh to our sugya. There's no reason why it's here. We don't know. Now we go back to our sugya. Okay? It says we have kulon im nises. Our mission I skipped. Sorry. Rabbi Yochanan Sherech the Demin Hava. Rabbi Yochanan said name Rabbi Chlaf who came from the town of Hava. V'kulim nises lo teitzei. In our mission it said if she has kids, then the kids are okay, even though these 3 are psulim. Rabbi Yochanan adds on, even she already got married to a second guy, she doesn't get divorced, even though she doesn't have kids yet. But Shloti Lisa up on that in order that because the ones who do have kids, and because she might have kids, in order not to create rumors. So once she's married, Nisuin, she doesn't have to get divorced and leave the second husband, despite the fact that her get was gay, which didn't have Eidim, or didn't have Zman, or one of the other psul in our Mishnah, it only had 1 8. Okay? However, it's not that easy. Says the Gemara, Bito, if your daughter was married to your brother, okay? Your brother is married to your brother. Shani says Rishul begets, and your brother divorced her with such a get, one of these Getim Psulim. And she married out, and then your brother died without any kids. Lo Tate says she too should not leave her second husband. Why? In order that the co-wife, who's not your daughter, that you should be able to do yibum to her. Because if you took the daughter out of her second marriage and brought her back and said, well, you were never really divorced, then there would be Tzora Serva situation here. And the wife couldn't be Misyabemes. So therefore we let her be married to the second guy in order that yibum could occur. So far so good. However, this is the catch. Tzorosa. Let's say your daughter, again, your brother had 2 wives. One was your daughter and one was a stranger. Your daughter was divorced and married Lashuk, right? Then the Tzara got divorced and got married to Shuk, right? The Tzara, the co-wife, got divorced, got married Lashuk. In that case, Teitzei, the Tzora's got to get divorced from her current husband, and she can't undergo Yibum, because again, it's good to right, so she has to undergo Chalitza. There, we were not Mako. If the Tzora got remarried Lashuk, we make her get, assuming she had no kids yet. In that case, we make her get divorced and undergo chalitza from you. Okay? So that's a unique case in which we're more machmer. Okay? Says the Gemara, Bito Shenise Slachi. A case where your daughter was initially married to somebody else. And this somebody else gave her a get, which was one of the bad Gittin in our Mishnah. Then your daughter married your brother. And your brother has a co-wife. It's Mahamish Yavama's case, right? This is the Yavama's case. Okay, your daughter's married to somebody else. Who gave her one of the Gittin Psulim. And then your daughter married your brother, who had a co-wife. And then your brother died, right? Even vis-a-vis her father, she doesn't get divorced. In other words, even in order to allow the co-wife to be misabemes, then no divorce takes place. She doesn't go back to the original husband, and therefore only chalitza can be done and not yibum. Okay, says more further. Tani. Shlosha shtar, so what if you have the three cases in our Mishnah? That means a get which has no zman, has no, the first one, is written in by your handwriting, but without eidim, or it has no date, or it has only 1 8. What if these are legal documents, not getting, they're regular monetary documents? Shlosha shtar, so lo gravim nechayrin. They collect from free and clear property, but they're not going to be strong enough documents to collect from property which had been sold to somebody else. Rabbi Bara said, that's true, when the malve does not have the star fortified in his hands, which means that we don't know for sure that this is the handwriting of the borrower. But once we know that, there's a whole line missing here. It should be, the coordinator puts it in. If it's been sustained that this IOU was written by the borrower, then goyve they collect even from the chasim mishubadim. I'm still reading from what's not in the Gemara. Rabbi Yossi asks, Im shaloch zakashtar biyad malve. If it's talking about a case where we don't know if it's the handwriting of the borrower, then back to the Gemara's second wide line at the end. How can you even collect from free and clear property? Maybe the whole thing is a fraud. I obviously have to know it's the guy's handwriting, right? Rather, we're talking when it says from for free and clear property, that's even the star was verified and certified to be the handwriting of the borrower. Why can't you collect from, in that case, from the chasim mishubadim, even for property which has been sold? So machlokas. Rabbi Bista said, because maybe the fact that there's no aiding means they're in cahoots here. The borrower and lender produced a bogus star to go collect back property which the borrower had sold. So since we're afraid of a plot, so therefore we don't allow them to collect from the chasim mishubadim. Rabbi said, not even because of that. Rabbi because it doesn't meet the parameters Chachamim gave. Chachamim said parameters, I need Eidim. No Eidim, it's possible. It's a technicality. No suspicion of goods necessarily. Hey, see Rabbi Avin asked a question. Where could I be assumed that there's cahoots? When a father borrowed money, the shebed and a lien was placed by, it should be said of a zaken, they changed the girsa here to a nochri. And a third guy has the property who's not related, right? And therefore, we're afraid we want to take property from a stranger, it should be nochri, who and maybe that's cahoots and a plot. However, Lova Zakim, an old man borrowed. V'shivit Abed, and now he died, and the property is in the hands of his son. So then, what's the plot here? There's no plot. Obviously, the old man who died wasn't plotting against his son. He's dead anyway now, right? Rather, lo mivnei lisa memnei tkuna lo neshupsul. And even a case where there is clearly no chashash of a plot and no cahoots, because we know it's the father and son. The father was the one who wrote the document. The son is now the one for whom they're collecting. In that case, it's still possible if there's no Eidim to collect from the Chasim B'Shubadim. Why? Because it doesn't meet the technical parameters Chachamim require. Hey Sivra, and similarly, Hey Sivra Rabbi Avin asks a question. Says Vatani Abigite Noshim, says by Gite Noshim, even though it's written in the handwriting of the husband, it's postal rabban, right? Ismael named Nikluda. What? There's any plot or cahoots by a husband? Lo mivnei psul. No, it's not because of technicality. So too, by anything which is written in handwriting, the reason why it doesn't collect from the Chasim B'Shubadim is because of a technicality. Okay? Rabbi Yanai said, V'kulam b'ksav yadayim. All of the Gittin or Mishnah are talking about where they're written in by the husband himself. Rabbi Lezer said, wait a minute, why? In the second case of the where it doesn't have a date, Eidim Yeshkan, it doesn't have a date, but it's got witnesses. Why do you have need his own handwriting? Rabbi Yirmiyav and Rabbi Yirmiyav Rav Taka said, so in the first and third cases, first case there's no Eidim, and last case there's only one aid, then it's in his own handwriting. But not the middle case, which has Eidim but no Zman. But and that's what the Bavli says. But the Yerushalmi gives a different answer. Rav Nuna's answer argues. Rav Nuna, no. In a case where it has no Zman, even though it has Eidim, if it's not written in the husband's own handwriting, we don't accept the get. You know why? Because these Eidim are not trustworthy. These Eidim, their sin is on their bones. They're liars. So if it wasn't in the handwriting of the husband, we wouldn't accept the middle case in our Mishnah as well. It's amazing chiddush. So the fact that Eidim sign on in star without Zman is in and of itself a reason to passel Eidim. Because Eidim have to check out the star and make sure it's written out properly before they sign it. It's an amazing concept. Again, the Bavli has no such thing. Bavli holds it's an honest mistake, but Yerushalmi Rabbi Nuna's answer says, no, taka passel again. Okay, we'll stop here. And we'll finish that.